Welcome to this episode of Locked In. In this video, I'm going to be doing my full review of the Poseidon X. If you're looking for a sub $1,000 monster gravel bike, please stay tuned. So in this video, I'm going to go into the specs and features, ride quality, price, and my final thoughts. So let's get into the specs of this bike. This is going to be a fully aluminum frame and fork out of 6160 aluminum. It has a max tire clearance of a 650 by 2.5 or a 29er by 2.1. The stock tire that comes with the complete build is a Kenda 650 by 2.35 wrapped around a set of tubeless compatible rims, but the tires are not tubeless compatible out of the box. It does ship with tubes. The drivetrain is a Microshift Advent X 10-speed clutched drivetrain. The crankset is a square taper 4-bolt crankset with a 38-tooth narrow white chainring, and the finishing cockpit is going to be all Poseidon branded handlebars, stem, and seat post. The mounting options on this frame are going to be plentiful. You have plenty of mounts on the fork for anything cages, spare water, as well as since it is aluminum, you are able to run a rando rack or a basket on the front. You do have a hole in the front of the fork, so if you wanted to run a dynamo light or any other style of accessory there for mounting, as well as you do have 3 bottle bosses inside the main triangle if you ride a size medium or larger, and you do have a set of bottle bosses on the down tube as well, and you have your standard rear rack mounts on the bike. The bike is standard 12mm through axle front and rear with flat mount dual piston Tektro disc brakes with 160mm size rotors. And the overall weight for this bike with tubes on my scale was about 27.5 pounds in a size large. Once I did convert this to tubeless, it did drop about a pound off the bike since both tubes were around 300 or so grams each. Now let's get on to ride quality. Aluminum has gotten a bad rap over the years, but realistically in the last 5 to 6 years, I think aluminum's come a long way of being an affordable option that still can ride really well. And even at this price point, I was surprisingly shocked with how good this bike rode. And obviously with this big tire size, you're getting a lot of comfort out of the tire. But that's what they designed this bike around. It's designed to take up to a 2.5 650 tire, which is a lot of meat. So that's going to give you a lot of mechanical suspension in the bike. And obviously you can add other things to make the bike more comfortable with redshift components or any other type of pseudo gravel suspension. But out of the box, I was surprised at how good this thing rode, especially once I set it up tubeless, because obviously I was able to run a lot lower pressure and still have a great ride quality. Now I have to tell you that on road, this is not going to be the smoothest ride, just because these Kenda tires are pretty chunky, but they do hook really, really well, and they float over sand better than any other tire that I've ridden personally at this moment in time when I'm filming this video. So ride quality overall was shockingly good. The only thing you're really going to notice that I'm putting in this category for ride quality is obviously how the bike climbs. Being at this heavy weight with basically any amount of pedals, cages, and even just water on the bike, you're probably going to be over that 30-pound mark. So it isn't going to climb as well. Now the bike two-hand, when you're physically riding it, I don't say that it feels heavy. I just noticed that my relative heart rate for areas that I've ridden multiple times was a little bit more elevated, meaning that I was working a little bit harder to do similar speeds or efforts to what I normally would do on these routes that I test my bikes on. So I noticed that because, again, I've ridden these areas multiple times and ridden them on different bikes so I can kind of feel the difference. You at home, if this is your first bike or first gravel bike, you might not notice that. Now let's get into price. This bike is going to retail at $899, and Poseidon does offer financing on this through Affirm. So if you want to break up that payment to make it even easier to walk into this bike, you totally can. And honestly, it is a lot of bike for the money. Now let's get on to my final thoughts, and this is going to be a little bit long, so please bear with me. I'm going to break into sizing, a little bit about the group set itself, and then my likes and dislikes and who I think this bike is for. So as far as sizing goes, just for numbers' sake, because I did get this question a lot in my live stream as well as my first ride impressions, I'm 5'11", I'm about 185 pounds, I have a really short inseam for my height at about 30.5 or so inches, and I'm riding a size large. I do need a lot more top tube than most people, so that's why I need the reach on this bike to fit me. Obviously, if I had longer legs and a shorter torso, I might size down to the medium, so you want to make sure to really look over the numbers, maybe base it off a bike you currently have at home that you like the fit of, and you can obviously always hit up Poseidon and ask them for their opinion. Now let's get on to the drivetrain. This is really where I was surprised at how good this Advent X group set was. I have recently tested the Sensa group set, and I will be doing a comparison video of both those group sets as well as an independent review for just Advent X by itself, so make sure to hit that notification icon so you can see those videos when they come out. This group set shifted a lot like SRAM as far as the feel goes. It's almost this like Gatling gun rifle mechanism feeling to it. When the clutch is on, it shifts hard. So if you don't nail the shift point, it can almost feel a little clunky, but when you nail it, it's almost seamless. So I was really impressed with it. If you do ride this bike for whatever reason a lot on the road and you're not riding off-road, you can turn that clutch off, and it does make the shifting action a little bit easier. So it does shift a little bit better without the clutch, but obviously you're going to want that on when riding off-road. And as far as the ergonomics, I actually like them. I was still able to grab both of the shift paddles in the drop bar position, which I was honestly worried about because the one shift paddle is kind of high up. But with the ergonomics of the stock handlebar, which was really nice, by the way, I was still able to function that shifter fully in the hoods and in the drops. As far as aesthetics goes, these aren't the most beautiful shifters out there, but they do work really well. And yes, you do have to mind the shift cable. And lastly, these brakes were actually pretty good. These are dual piston brakes, which honestly were quite a bit of braking power and more modulation than I expected out of them after bedding them properly. Now let's get into my pros and cons. The things I really like about the bike is obviously the tire capacity and how much this is really going to open up, I'm hoping, more bikes with this tire capacity, as well as I honestly liked how the bike handled. It's kind of this nice balance between being kind of long and stable and still having some turn in, but it's obviously not as quick as a cross bike, so you are going to have to basically be more flowy, and you're going to have to be more intentional with the line choice that you pick. But with that massive amount of tire, it's really going to soak up if you do kind of mess up your line choice, honestly, for a more beginner rider just like myself. And so that's something that you do have that kind of cushion as far as the tire size capacity when riding on trail. As far as dislikes go, honestly, there's only a few little things, and they're all kind of small gripes. One, I do wish that the sizing on this bike was honestly about a centimeter or so longer in the top tube on all the sizes, as well as about 20 mil taller in the head tube. It is more upright than the Poseidon X, which I will be doing a comparison video on these two bikes as well later in the future. But honestly, I do wish this was just a tad bit taller in the front to make it even more comfortable, because if this is supposed to be your all-day gravel crusher, I would want a little bit more endurance-friendly or gravel-friendly geometry on the front end. And I wish there was different through axles on this bike, which obviously you could change yourself, but I wish that the handle on them was just a fixed unit, like I've seen on some bikes. I believe DT Swiss makes some, to where it's just a fixed handle that you just spin, it tightens, and you're done. To where this kind of cams out and the other alternate end does fall out of the frame. I wish there was some kind of set screw to put both of the end caps on the non-drive side fixed into the frame set so that they don't fall out and you don't have to misplace them or lose them on the trail, especially in some dirt or anything like that. But besides that, those are my only two things that I would really honestly change. If you're looking into getting a bike that is closer to a mountain bike than a gravel bike is to a road bike, this is kind of the perfect bike for you. If you just want massive tire clearance and you want to ride the chunkiest, gnarliest stuff and you don't have a ton of money to spend, I think this is a perfect bike for you. Again, from that kind of pseudo, maybe you've been interested in mountain or had a mountain bike, or maybe don't want to fully commit to buying a mountain bike and this is still more versatile for you and more capable than a traditional gravel bike. If I was going to buy this bike, the only two things honestly I would eventually do is for the wheel set. Obviously, that's your easiest way to buy a wheel set, and there's great options in that $300 to $500 range that would really save a lot of weight off this bike. And besides that, honestly, I would maybe just upgrade the brakes to a hydromechanical brake set like the Hwin R1s, just to add a little bit more braking force for not a lot of money, and you can still retain your stock drivetrain and shifter components. But besides that, I've been really enjoying the bike, and I am going to be working on some more content, so please make sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, links are in the description below. And if you want to support this channel so you can help me do this full time, I am trying to make more cycling content every single week. You can support me on Patreon, links are in the description. I do have cool different perks of the different tier levels offered in that as well. And thanks for watching another episode of Locked In.
Let's get locked in today, like tutorials and quick